Hey guys, I just wanted to make a quick video because I am having some thoughts about my son, and I am going to put him in his crib for the first time tonight, overnight. And so what I wanted to do was just talk about my experience with co-sleeping and kind of go through like the details of what I've done and what's worked and what hasn't worked. And my purpose for this is to really break down like some of the details, because I think when you're trying to establish a routine with a baby, especially your first child, because you've never done it before, there's so much vague information, and you can use books and YouTube videos and friends and family to get suggestions and ideas, and also to understand how babies work in humans, but then kind of combine that with your own gut instinct. And I think the reason that I feel like sharing is because I have trusted my gut instinct, and I think it's paid off. So when you're making some decisions, it's really hard to know how they're gonna like domino effect down the road. And you have this thought that if I do this, then it's gonna lead to this, and this is how it's gonna be. And if you're successful, then in hindsight you made the right decision, and then if it doesn't turn out that way, that's okay too. But I have had some success so far, and I just want to share with other moms, like, this is what I did, and maybe it'll work for you, and maybe it won't work for you at all. I talk to my friends and family all the time who have babies, and they've done things totally different, and it's worked for them. So every kid is different, but this is just like what I've done with my son, who is 8.5 months old, and tonight's his first night in his crib. So in the meantime, it's about 90 degrees and 100% humidity, which is why I'm in basically a bathing suit, and I am drinking a very cold beverage. I need to clean the bathroom while my son is sleeping, because I got to take advantage of nap times now. So I'm drinking an Active, and it's just got like a bunch of vitamins in it, and it's very antioxidant rich, but it gives you a ton of energy. So it's like it's a clean, natural caffeine, and it's just, I love it. So I'm drinking that, and by the time I finish this video, it'll probably kick in, so I'll go clean the bathroom. So when I was pregnant, I was very determined to breastfeed, and I also felt that I would probably keep my son in my room for about a year. And I know that a lot of people don't do that. But in every book that I read and every research bit that I did, I really felt like that was gonna be the best thing. And I wanted to form a very close and loving and attached relationship with my son, and I wanted bedtime to be a safe and happy time. And something in me felt like putting him in the other room alone was not gonna settle well. And it's so hard to know if that's actually like how it was supposed to go, or if I instilled that. I really don't know, and I guess I won't know until I have another child to compare, because I don't believe that everything you do makes your child a certain way. I don't believe that because I hug and kiss and hold my son all the time means that he's a lovey kid. He is a lovey kid, but I think that there's plenty of moms that do that, and their kids just aren't snuggly, and I don't think it has anything to do with, you know, what you put on them. But anyways, I was gonna keep him in my room for a year. So I didn't plan out exactly how that was gonna go, but I did have a bassinet that was given to me from a friend, and it was a small bassinet for like up to 5 months probably. It rolled, and it was next to my bed. So I had him, and he was 8 pounds 7 ounces, and he was great with breastfeeding. So I thought, but he latched right away. Everything was wonderful. And then fast forward about a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks after being home, my breastfeeding experience was treacherous. I think he has a tie. It's a very small tongue tie. And they mentioned it to me at the hospital. I was tongue-tied actually, but it didn't affect my nursing or my speech. But I had it corrected when I was about 9. And they didn't really draw a lot of attention to it at the hospital, but I did hear the pediatrician say that, so it registered. And over the first 2 to 4 weeks, it was just one hurdle after another. So I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole nother video, but we got through it with doctor's appointments, medication, nipple shields, advice, support, just a lot of learning. And so I'm still breastfeeding him, and now it's smooth sailing, but the first month was very rough. So I will make a video about that for moms who are going through that. There's a lot that you have to learn. But anyways, so having him in my room was really important because he was eating all the time, and he was right next to me. And I would pull him into the bed, I would feed him, and then I would put him back into his bassinet. And that was the case for a few months, probably up to 4 or 5 months. And they don't really move at that point. You swaddle them. They don't really roll or anything. You just kind of put them down, and the only thing that you're dealing with is fussiness, like if they want to be held, or they want to eat. So getting him like back to sleep was never super, super hard, but there were a few nights I would have to get up a couple times and just kind of like soothe him. And then we got to about 5 months, almost 5 to 6 months, in that range. And a lot of people at that point will transition their kid into their crib, into their bedroom, if they already haven't. And I wasn't ready. I tried starting to nap him in the crib at that point, and he was not having it. He hated his crib, hated it. And I was really worried. I was like, oh man, he's never gonna like this crib. So I tried a bunch of different methods. I tried letting him cry. There was a day where I let him cry for like 45 minutes, and that was really, really hard. And I felt like he was too little. I felt like in my gut he was too little to be in there crying like that. It wasn't settling for me. I did it a couple times, and I was like, I'm not doing this. This is just not how I want to do it. And that's your prerogative, moms. Like, if you want to let your baby cry it out, go ahead. And tons of people do that. And there's so many things that I read about, is this traumatizing him? And how is he emotionally affected by me letting him cry? And how often should I go in? And all those things I researched. So I knew I wasn't doing anything wrong, but I just wasn't comfortable with it. So I gave up on it, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna let him sleep where he's comfortable. And at that point, it was mostly in my arms, in a swing, or in the bassinet. I would wheel the bassinet out into like the kitchen or the living room. He was still pretty resilient to noise, and he would sleep through like the phone or like the dogs barking. Didn't really bother him too much. So I would just let him sleep wherever, and he was rested. I can't stress that enough. I feel like when you try to control the situation so much so that you're disrupting everything that's happening, your kid gets overtired, and they're not rested, and then they're not happy, and then you're not happy, and then it's a struggle. So I knew that if I was letting him sleep wherever he was sleeping, that he would get the sleep he needed, he would wake up and he would be a happy baby. And then I would be a happy mom because my baby wasn't fussy. So I just let those things happen. And I didn't try to force the crib thing. And then we got to about 6 months, 7 months, and he started to outgrow his bassinet. Maybe even before that, because he's a really long kid. So I tried a couple things. I put the pack and play in our room, and I tried to have him sleep in the pack and play for about 3 weeks at night, and that was a failure. Now, it could have been around that sleep regression, so it may have just been like coincidence that I was putting him in the pack and play when he was having a sleep regression, but also he might have been having a growth spurt. Like, he was waking up every hour and a half, and one night I just let him sleep on top of me, like literally on my chest. I fed him and I let him fall asleep, and sorry, there's a truck. He slept 5 or 6 hours. So I was like, okay, I know he's capable of going this period of time without eating. He wants the snuggling. He wants mommy to hold him. So he was crying for my attention. And like I said, I knew I was going to be that parent that just solved that with giving him love. So I gave it to him. And I hugged him and I held him. If he wanted to be held, I held him. And I kept telling myself in all the cultural things that were popping into my head, like, don't hold your kid too much. Don't hold your kid too much. I was like, he is 5.5 months old. He wants to be held. This is what I'm here for, you know? He wants to be held, so I'm going to hold him. So I let him sleep on top of me almost every night. And I would have the bassinet next to my bed, and we would start out and I would put him in it. And then sometimes he would sleep for an hour. Sometimes he would sleep for 3-4 hours. He would cry. I would pull him in bed. I would feed him. I would try to put him back in. If he went back in soundly, then we would just go back to sleep. If he wouldn't, then I would just keep him in the bed. And usually he would kind of like dream feed, and I would just get propped up in a way where we were both safe, and I would just sleep on my back. And it worked because we both slept. So he would wake up like 2 times in the night, and I didn't have an established bedtime at this point. He would wake up like 2 times in the night and feed, and then the rest of the time I would just hold him and we would sleep. And we got good sleep, and I was never tired because I would just wake up, feed him, and then doze back off, and he would doze back off, and everybody was just happy. And then he started to get too heavy. So he started to get a little fidgety and a little heavy about like 6 weeks ago, maybe around 6 or 7 months. And I had to kind of come up with like the next plan, you know, but I still felt it was too early for the crib. You know, I put him in his crib a couple times to nap, and he was just like, nope, he would cry. So, and the other thing was he was outgrowing his bassinet. His bassinet was getting too small. Like he was touching the ends of it. So I did a bunch of research, and I ended up ordering a co-sleeper. And basically what a co-sleeper is like an oversized bassinet. So I measured and checked all the measurements on the stuff I was researching. And the side drops down and it goes up against your mattress. And so basically you can keep your kid co-sleeping until they're like 2 if you want to. And you put the kid in it, and then they kind of like roll over and come to you, or you lift them and they feed, and then you kind of can go to sleep, or they can like roll back into their co-sleeper, or you can put them back. So my thought was, I'm going to utilize this co-sleeper as long as I need to, where we can still like breastfeed in the night, but he's safer because it's bigger and it's designed to hold his weight. Because the other thing was, he wasn't really rolling or moving in his sleep. And a lot of my friends' babies like crawl or pulled up in the night or just moved around a bunch, and he didn't. So that's why the bassinet was okay for so long, because he wasn't trying to get out of it. Otherwise, that wouldn't have worked because it would have been unsafe. So I put him in the co-sleeper about a month ago. 7.5 months, I transitioned him into the co-sleeper. And I decided that because he was getting so sensitive, again, I was using my instinct and I was picking up on some of his behaviors. He was too sensitive to noises to be able to sleep anywhere but in a quiet room. So a couple times where I would have him sleeping in the swing, or like even with holding him, the dogs would bark or the TV or something would make noise and it would wake him up. And then instead of getting a 2-hour nap, he would get a 30-minute nap and he would be overtired and then he was fussy. And I can't with that fussiness. And so I was like, okay, naps need to be in a quiet space. So I started building the routine around the naps. And I knew when his naps were because we were on a great routine, and I was ahead of the game, but it was just the location. So we would do our little nap routine, and I'll tell you what that is, and then I would start putting him down in the co-sleeper, and it worked like so well. So basically what I do when he needs a nap is I tell him a couple times, "You're tired, buddy, it's nap time," and I say, or bedtime, I say it a couple times, and then we go into his bedroom, change his diaper, and then I feed him. And I am supplementing now, so again, I'll talk about that in my breastfeeding video, but I started supplementing at 20 weeks. I exclusively breastfed till 20 weeks, and then I supplement. So I have no routine for supplementing. He feeds on demand, breastfeeds on demand, but if there are times when I feel he's hungry or I have not produced or I'm working or whatever the situation, I'll give him a bottle of formula. So sometimes it's 1 bottle of formula a day, sometimes it's 3 or 4. Gosh, sorry, I'm sitting on my front porch. So I'll feed him, whether it's breastfed or formula, and get his pacifier ready. And before I sit down to feed him, I will turn on the sound machine and I will close the blinds. So I hold him and I walk around and I close the blinds and I tell him it's nap time. And then I bring him over to the chair and I feed him. And if he's totally asleep, that's great. I just put him in the bassinet. But when I get done feeding him, even if he's not totally asleep, I put his binky in his mouth and then I put him into his co-sleeper with there's this little stuffed toy that sings. And I started playing that in the co-sleeper. When I started putting him in there, I would just turn it on. So now when he gets in there and I turn on that little toy, it registers to him that it's sleepy time. So I put him down and I squeeze the little thing and then I leave the room and I close the door and turn on the monitor. And I say, "It's nap time, buddy, I love you," and then I leave the room. So if he cries once he realizes I'm gone, I'll wait 3 or 4 minutes and I'll go back in and I'll lay him, like if he's rolled over looking around, I'll lay him back down and put his pacifier in and turn the toy on again and I'll say, "It's nap time, buddy, I love you," and then I'll leave him. And I will do that as many times as I need to until he goes to sleep. And sometimes it's 2 times, sometimes it's 3 or 4 or 5, doesn't matter. After about 30 minutes, if he is completely like not going down and it's just, there's no end in sight, I'll just pick him up. I'm like, okay, done with this, not carrying on. So I will bring him back out and then I'll watch for his signs, and if he starts looking tired, I will start it over again and I'll do the routine and then maybe not feed him if he doesn't need to, but maybe nurse him, that helps, and bring him back in and do it. And it's always successful. So even if he sleeps 10 minutes, I look at that as a victory because he got the routine, it registered, he went into his co-sleeper and he slept. Sometimes he sleeps 2.5 hours, which is awesome, but I still do the routine. So anyways, I've been doing that for a month. And it's been amazing. It's been amazing. The timing is just perfect. I trusted my gut and he's been wonderful. And I do it at night too. So we started developing more of a bedtime. I do the routine, including a bath. And I give him a bath, I change his diaper, I feed him, and then I do the same thing. I say it's bedtime and I put him in there. And he'll usually sleep for a few hours and then he wakes up to eat, usually when my husband and I are going to bed. Sometimes he doesn't, but what's going on now is through the night, he fusses and cries, and then I will bring him into bed to feed him, and he doesn't want to go back in his co-sleeper. So sometimes I'm successful, and then sometimes he ends up sleeping on me. But we are now to the point now where he can like crawl and get around, and if he's not tired and I put him in the co-sleeper, he crawls out. So the past couple nights it's been getting there, and last night I was like, okay, it's time. It's just time. Like, it's just like, you just know. And I've started doing naps, daytime naps in the crib. The first day I do the routine, I do the same exact thing, but I just put him down in his crib. The first day he fought it, he wasn't really having it, but it worked. And then I did one nap in the crib and I did one nap in the bassinet, so I split that day, because right now he takes 2 naps. The second day, which was yesterday, his morning nap was super successful. We did the routine, he fell asleep, and he slept 2.5 hours, and he was such a happy boy. And then my afternoon nap was a failure because he slept a really long time in the morning and he wasn't tired. So I gave it about like the 30-minute try, and then I just forget it. And then for nighttime, I put him in the co-sleeper last night, but he was overtired. It was Father's Day, and we went to get ice cream, and it was right in the window when I should have been putting him to bed. And I knew that, but we paid for it because then he was overtired and he didn't go to sleep for like 2 or 3 hours, and he was really wound up and he cried. But anyways, that's why he kept crawling out of the co-sleeper, because he didn't want to go to bed. So today I just put him down for his morning nap. He is passed out. I sat in the room. So for my son, he gets really distraught when I leave him. And I know for some moms, when they put their baby down, they have to go away because being around the baby is too stimulating for them to fall asleep. So again, you know your own baby. I know my son. When I leave him, he goes berserk. When he can see me, he's calm. So he's able to fall asleep. So I did the routine. I put him in his crib, and I sat in the rocking chair, and I just rocked quietly in the corner. Didn't talk to him, didn't really make eye contact unless he started fussing, and then I would just shh, shh, shh. And I would wave to him, and he could see me. And it took about 10 to 15 minutes, and his eyes closed, and he's passed out. So he's still sleeping. So afternoon nap will be the same thing today. And tonight, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do the routine. I'm going to put him in his crib and hope for the best. But I also know that I might be up 7 times tonight, okay? So this is what you have to accept when you're putting your baby through a transition like this. I need to put myself on the back burner for a couple of nights. I might not be rested. That's okay. This is going to be a huge split for us. I have either been carrying him like inside of me or next to him for like a 1.5 years. This is our first night separated. So it's going to be new. It's going to be new for me too. I'm probably going to be emotional. I've never opened my eyes in the night and not been able to see my baby. So I have the monitor, but he's in the other room. It's crazy. So I'm doing my best with it. I took down the co-sleeper. I'm not giving myself that crutch because I know if it's there and I'm tired and I go get him and he's fussy, I'm going to be tempted to go back in my room and put him in the co-sleeper, and then he's just going to end up on top of me. So we got to stick with it. So I took it down. Packed it up. It's in the basement. And sorry, I'm sitting on a cinder block, so this is like not comfortable. I'm just going to go with it. And the consistency is the key. Trust your gut and then be consistent. Those are my words of advice. There is no right and wrong answer, but if you trust your gut and if you just go with what feels right, I know tonight is supposed to be the first night in the crib. Not a day sooner, not a day later. I know it. And that confidence is going to transcend through me into him, and he will be calm. If I was unsure, the baby feels you're unsure, and then it blows up. So tonight's the first night, and when he calls for me, he said mama last night for the first time. He was mad, but he was in the co-sleeper and I wouldn't pick him up because I wanted him to go to sleep, and he said mama, and I was like, okay, now I'll go pick you up. So it was great. But I will go in there tonight and I'll soothe him and pick him up, and I'm not gonna let himself cry himself into hysteria. That's not the way I parent. So I will go in and hold him and console him, and I'll put him down, and then I'll sit in the room and I'll rock. And you know, I have my strategies planned out, and this may take a couple of nights. Like I said, I might be up 7 times tonight. He might just like not understand and cry, and that's okay. We're gonna get through it. And so I'm just going to encourage him with love, and I'll be there and calm him down. And this is happening, you know? So that's what I'm gonna do. That's kind of like where we've come to, and we gotta lower the crib today. So I guess I'll keep you guys posted. That's the phase that we're going into. If you have any advice, you know, of course, include it below, write me a comment, because it's always helpful to get advice. Even, you know, you can take away the tiniest little thing from someone else's advice, and it might not even be exactly what they say or what they're trying to tell you. You could actually take away something else that they didn't even mean to share with you, or maybe they thought you already knew. So like, advice is always welcome. Just take what you want and leave the rest of it. You don't need to take every bit of every person's advice, because you'll go crazy. So yeah, wish us luck, and I'll do a follow-up video in a couple weeks when things have settled, and I'll let you know how it goes. So have a great day, and I'll see you soon.